Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Karan and Kristin. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble. Today we are talking with Pirate Queen Anat Peri. She is a transformational life coach and the founder of Training Camp for the Soul, an emotional resilience training to remove barriers in your way so that you can create the life that you are meant to live. Anat's mission is to help people thrive and live their best life. Through her coaching, she provides the tools needed to achieve your goals and create a more fulfilling life. And that has guided me on my journey that began my own personal pirate journey. So we're excited to have her here today. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. If I would have told you this, was it 2.5 years ago that you did Training Camp for the Soul, that you would be hosting a podcast?
I would have laughed.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, you really broke through in finding your voice, and now here you are sharing it. So amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. So as we just said, you guided me on my pirate journey. And when at Training Camp for the Soul, Mark England was there telling pirate jokes. So it was really, truly a pirate introduction to this change too. So you've been guiding many people to change their stories and chart their course through life. We'd love to have you tell us about what started you on your own pirate journey.
Like my own personal pirate journey. I've never actually said that before. Pirate journey. Arr, okay, I guess I am a pirate. Well, for me, there was it's twofold. I think it always started out with this desire to support others. From being in high school and having friends always come to me for advice. God knows what I said to them back then, but whatever it was, it created that peace of mind for them. And so there was always this part of me that wanted to support others, coach others, that was interested in psychology and how the mind works. And I considered majoring in psychology, and then the idea of 8 years of traditional schooling is what turned me off, and just found me anyway, right? I went the route of business and finance instead, and the world of self-development found me, because when it's your purpose, it'll find you. And so I'd say there was this early on knowing that I'm here to be a guide, a messenger, that I love making the world a better place. And there wasn't as much awareness of my own shit, because again, I think I avoided really looking at that young age. The only thing I was aware of was my relationship with my mother, which was always conflicting. And so what led me down the path of self-development was actually my relationship with my mother. We did our very first program together. But my statement to her when she's like, come on, let's do this, I'll pay for us to do it. I'm like, okay, good. Then you'll see that I'm right and you're wrong. And yeah, let's just say it didn't go that way. And it was the beginning of me starting to unravel and see the dynamic, not only with her, but the relationship that I had to myself, or the lack of relationship that I had to myself. And, my struggles in my 20s were everything from being in codependent relationships to feeling lost in my career, like leaving the finance industry and then going into the beauty industry and then to this startup and to this one and that one, just hopping around, feeling really lost in that, to not loving myself, like not having any self-love, to getting into like $40,000 in debt, although most of that was self-development work. So it paid off. But really seeking always that like external, if I just prove myself more, if I just do more, if I just love him more, then I'll be worthy. And all through that time, I'm in like weekly courses of transformation, like 8 years nonstop, 3 of which I was doing my own work, and then 5 years where I was in like leadership roles and really developing myself as a facilitator, as a coach. Which, you know, when you're in it, you're still always looking at yourself. But 8 years into it, I had nothing to show for it, except for like having a lot of good skills as a coach and a lot of knowledge. But personally, if you looked at my life, I was 32, almost 33 years old, and I had a 5-year relationship that just came to like an abrupt end. I was bitter, I was angry, there was no self-love there. I had all this debt, I was lost in my careers, I was living in New York City, somewhere that I didn't want to be. And there was nothing more frustrating than that, than being like, wait a minute, I've like learned all these tools and yet I have nothing to show for it. I thought it was crazy. And I also thought that I'm hopeless. I think that's something that a lot of people experience that do embark into the self-development journey and are willing to look at themselves, is when they are working with tools that haven't gotten them to the root of it. Said differently, like if you imagine a garden full of weeds and you have a vision, you know what you want that garden to look like. You even went to the garden store and you picked up all the seeds for the flowers you want and the vegetables you want. Like, you do know. Yet the tools that you've been using to clear out the weeds are just trimming the weeds and not getting deep enough. And so that was my experience the first 8 years. Is I was doing self-development work, but a lot of it was cognitive, a lot of it was mindset. And by no means am I knocking mindset work. It is important. You know, mastery of language, all of that. I mean, it is important. And what was missing for me was the connection to the body. So it was leaving me at a place where I had a lot of knowledge and I knew what I wanted, but I wasn't feeling through what was there and clearing that out. So for me, it was just something that even though I felt hopeless, I could not get myself to stop digging, to stop seeking. And sometimes the universe stepped in and helped me out with, you know, ending this 5-year relationship by him meeting another woman. And that was like one of my lowest points in my life and one of the greatest gifts of my life. Because at that point, there was nothing left for me that I felt I needed to hold on to or control. And I was ready to let go. I was ready to I literally bought a one-way ticket. I'm going on 10 years? Oh, losing track here. 2012, 9 years in October. Bought a one-way ticket to California with $2,000 to my name. No job, no car, no home, no plan. One friend in San Diego. And I bought this ticket like 3 days after we broke up, and I was gone 3 weeks after. And I just knew that like the one thing I knew my heart desired was California, and the rest I was like, okay, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what's best for me. I don't know where to go, what to do. I'm done thinking that I know. Because boy, did I go into my 20s thinking that like I was the shit, had it all figured out. And I think also just the energy of the East Coast and New York specifically is very much like, go, go, go. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. So you can just force it, just do it, just hustle, which I have that generator energy. Like I'm always willing to hustle. I'm willing to put myself out there, all that. I'm willing to take those risks. And it got exhausting. And so like landing in California to me was like, Jesus, take the wheel. Like God, universe, I'm going to surrender, and I'm going to allow myself to be guided, because with everything I know, this is what I've gotten to at 32, almost 33. Like, that was scary to have nothing my heart desired. So yeah, so that was 9 years ago, and that was like the beginning of my surrender experiment and my beginning of learning to trust the moment by moment and see the miraculous show up when you don't control everything. My first taste of really being in receiving in the feminine energy, which led me down the path of plant medicine, and led me down the path of uncovering the hidden relationship I had, the hidden facts, the hidden traumas, experiences I had with my father, of him not spending time with me, of him neglecting our time together, of him always working, and how that impacted my life, how that impacted my romantic relationships, how that impacted my relationship with the ultimate father, God. And so I left in New York. I left behind the like mindset heavy work, and I came to the energy here of California, which I feel is very much for a lot of us more embodied, and discovered meditation and like yoga practices for the first time, and plant medicine, which really introduced me to my body. And and then eventually my mentor, who had been facilitating for over 40 years, he passed away, but he was facilitating body mind psychology work, and it was the first time that I experienced someone teaching me not only to use the mind and subconscious, but also the somatic and the body and sensations that are there. And it was my first, it was, oh, this is what transformation is. Oh, this is what healing is like. Up until that moment, my experience of transformation was like ahas, like popcorn moments, like, woo, which to me, and now I see, is actually just awareness. It's just stage one of what I call the 5 stages of healing. It's like, woo, I become aware of something that was hidden for me before. And I thought that was transformation. And what I learned and experienced working with my mentor is that transformation is a walk through a burning forest, and there's a dragon to slay. Mm-hmm. That you have to face your identity, you have to face your biggest fears, you have to feel through the grief and the pain that you never wanted to have, and that you never acknowledged was actually there. And it was through that experience that like I rose from that. I cleared the path of what was always in my way. And that's when I knew I was ready to support others. And I still wasn't quite ready. I took another like 6 months, 7 months off, but like really off, and just allowed myself to play, to get to know this inner child of mine and to explore. And then I was ready. I was like, well, I now have tools that what's taken me 10 years. I know I can guide other people with these tools. So I stepped on that ship, hung my flag, so to speak, and just claimed what I know I was ready for and capable of and always desired.
what is the, the social rebellion that you're working with, or you're doing with your work that you do? What are you trying to change for people in their transformation?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. And when Kristin, when you read my mission before, I was like, oh, I really need to update that. Because in the past few months, it really became so clear that my mission and the reason I do what I do is to normalize healing trauma and to end generational trauma. I mean, to normalize it where it's not woo-woo or taboo anymore, or something that people are afraid to allow themselves to experience, where it's just like, oh yeah, I have this trauma. Oh yeah, I have this experience, or I feel held back here. Oh yeah, I should go do that. Let me go feel it. Where it's just like, just like the gym, in the 1980s, you may be old enough to know or not, but in the 1980s, the only people that worked out at gyms were bodybuilders. Our moms were at home doing like Jack LaLanne and, some aerobics and stuff. But if you said, I'm going to go to the gym, people would look at you and say, why? Are you looking to compete? Right? It was still taboo. It wasn't normalized, the importance of physical fitness. And it wasn't something we always needed. Going back 100 years ago, people didn't need to go to a gym to work out. They were in the fields, right? They were always physically doing something. We weren't sitting behind computers at a desk. So it evolved and became necessary. And it created other challenges. And it's led to where we are today, which is it's necessary for us to do our emotional healing for us to evolve to the next level. So that's why I do what I do.
And it's like the layers, it seems like normalizing feeling your feelings sounds like something where it's like, oh, okay, we normalize feeling our feelings. And then you realize like how many layers come in that, and how by the time it becomes something that you're unconsciously doing, it takes time. It's definitely a muscle to exercise, and takes a lot of getting those stories out of the way too, that are holding back the emotions, which is one thing I learned from you. So, yeah. With that, and you are leading people on starting their journeys and charting their own course. Tell us how, like, more, give us some detail on training camp for the soul and what you're doing with helping people begin their own journeys.
So many ways that I can delve into this conversation here. Well, I'm giving people permission and a safe environment to finally address whatever their deepest, darkest stuff is, the things that scare them the most. And permission to feel that, permission to accept it, and to know that only they could go in there. Like, I'm not doing it for you. I'm not your healer. I'm not going to heal you. I'm going to introduce you and help you remember the healer that you are, the healer within you, how brilliant our bodies are at healing when we give attention to those parts that need healing. If you were to burn your finger or cut your finger, and you put ice on it, or you put ointment on it and a Band-Aid because you experience this sensation that we call, ouch, this hurts, I don't want to feel this. And I believe actually that the reason that our body sends off such a strong sensation is it's a signal to the body that this part needs healing. Because it's not the ice or the ointment or the Band-Aid that's doing the healing. It is your body. And emotionally, unfortunately, we've overridden the emotions, the sensations that we experience with our mind, and we've turned off that connection where the body knows, oh, this part needs healing. And so I really want people to understand, and I bring people to simple yet complex because like you said, it takes practice and there's layers to it. But the simple practice of reconnecting and trusting the body to lead. And that when you observe and be with a part that is scary or painful or anxious or sad, that all you have to do is love that part. And then the body knows how to start to integrate it back in. The nervous system starts to build the capacity to receive this energy and be with it. I'm remembering a time when you were on the healing mat and we, I think, working on your voice, was it?
Ultimately, yeah.
Yeah. And you didn't do much. You just laid there and your body started releasing. I forget how, but I imagine you remember.
You see, that's the funny part. Lance is like, what happened? He'll still ask them. Like, I was asked a very simple question and my face started to, I started to like, it was, I can't think of the word, but yeah, my eye was twitching, my face was twitching. And you said, can you be with it? Yeah, okay, I can. And then eventually you offered the mat on the floor. And from there, my body started processing through, like tremoring out all whatever was there. And it was a very simple question of what happened after I got spanked by my dad. And I was, Lord, how did I feel or something? And I said, scared. And you're like, no, after, how'd you feel after? And that question, like, I don't even remember having an answer. Just my body went fully in and my eye wouldn't stop twitching. So every time I thought I was done with the full body stuff, I was like, my eye's still twitching. I'm not done yet. So yeah, it was a simple question.
Yeah, so this is an explanation of the experience, and those that are listening, you may get it, and experientially is really the only way to fully understand when you have this part that you haven't known is rejected or that you have been afraid to feel, and then you finally allow yourself to be with it, how quickly and how simple the body starts to marry it, to mirror it, to integrate it. And when I say the body, I mean the nervous system. Really, that's the system that is connected to everything, connected to your brain, helping you breathe, either keeping you in a restful state or in a fight flight response. And so the more we let in these experiences, be there, let ourselves be with these different energies, what you're doing is you're developing your nervous system's capacity. Oh, like there's a sensation happening. Oh, I can be with this. And then you could be with more, and you could be with more, you could be with more. Just like at the gym. Join a gym for the first time, you're not going to go, and deadlift 200 pounds. To build that capacity. Same thing, our nervous system's capacity. And this is something that as children, we didn't have the ability to do unless it was modeled to us. So your response when you were young was very much the response of someone that was made wrong for something they did, slapped for it, and again, you don't have logic to understand, like, what did I do? It depends so much on mom for safety and dad for love. And that either becomes, if it's dad, that becomes what love is. That if you do something wrong, you get hit. Like, yeah, let's reflect back. How did that affect you through your life up until that moment? What did that experience imprint in you?
While you were talking about the hit and the response back, it brought to memory a few times of like, if Lance got upset with me, especially after we got married. If we got into a fight, I had a fear that he was going to leave. And if he showed resistance, because he is quite a bit taller than me too, like if he showed resistance to something I wanted to fight. Like I would go into hit or push away, but my instinct was to fight back, or just like hit or push, just something that would let him know, like, I'm not okay with this. But using words to say what I wanted to say to him was the last thing I would do. It was first like react, get tight, react, and push.
Yeah. Again, that's like what got trapped in that experience with dad. Is it was an incomplete experience. I consider trauma any experience that your nervous system didn't have the capacity to be with. And so it gets frozen in whatever survival pattern you created. So you lost your voice in that moment and just wanted to just like push everything away. And at the same time, you also felt like love wasn't there for you. Dad is the source of love. Dad is your first experience of something outside of you loving you, whereas mom is an extension of the self. And so to receive that type of reaction from dad, I imagine created this feeling of love won't always be there, especially if you do something wrong. If you do something wrong, you're going to get spanked, which did not feel like the loving energy your dad gave you the very first time he held you. So you knew it wasn't love. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of shifts from that. And now as you're talking, I'm like, again, the layers, I can see where still some of that holds true, but in a much smaller way, where I'm like, oh, okay, I may still push back in a different way, and I'm now using my voice better. So yeah, as we're talking too, I'm like, oh, I see another layer I can pull back here. So there's always more that shows up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the more uncomfortable questions that you have your clients ask themselves when they're beginning this journey?
Oh, sorry, there's one word that got cut out there.
What
is the most uncomfortable what?
What are some of the uncomfortable questions you have your clients ask themselves when they're starting their journey with you? Or for anyone that wants to get started.
Yeah. Well, the journey from figuring it out or feeling like there's something to fix, which I feel a lot of people step in with, like they join, they sign up because I just want to fix this. I want to be fine. I want to be better. I want to be like this, right? So very much still in the mind. It's not so much specific questions as it is new practices where you're learning to surrender more to all of you than just the mind occupying. So everything from learning how to feel safe, to feel what it is that you're trying to fix and go away. Like, I have a lot of anxiety. I just want this to go away. I don't want to feel this way. And that's exactly what they need to do, is learn to feel safe, to be so much in that energy that it could get processed. by the nervous system. So first off is like a practice for anyone to do is learning how to feel safe in our bodies. And the practice of that is 3-step. One is sitting in the way that you would sit if you felt safe. How does a person who feels safe sit? Or how does a person that is scared sit? Curled up like a ball, right? Protecting their heart. So when you feel safe, you would sit spine straight, palms up and open, like open to receive. So first off, it's sitting in that way, because that's already sending a signal of safety. And then the breath. How does one breathe when they're scared? They either freeze or they shallow breathe. So taking those deep inhale, exhales. And I like to start with an exhale. Exhaling out all the old air so that your first inhale could be really big and powerful. And then the last part is occupying the monkey mind, right? That's telling you, this is scary, don't go here. Like, what if you never get out? You can't do this. You know, how do I make this go away? All the doubts, all that, to repeating to yourself, I'm safe. I'm taking a breath. I'm safe to be in my body. I'm safe to feel this. I'm safe to experience this. I'm safe. And for some people, it's quick. And for some, this could be the practice for them to do over and over again for a month. Depends how much they've severed that connection. That's part of the gift of being held in a container, right? Being held by a facilitator, is that they're creating that safety for you. So they're giving you some of that while you are building up your own. So that's always the first stage. And that in and of itself, for a lot of people, is an edge. But again, a necessary step. Mm-hmm. I'd say one other important practice is, again, these are all practices of let's get out of our head. Mm-hmm. Is if there is something you're battling with, or you're struggling with, or trying to figure out, get it out of your head and onto paper. Because there's a few different voices up there. And if you're trying to hear all of them at the same time, you're only hearing the loudest one. And most likely the loudest one is not your heart. Mm-hmm. It's your identity. And so the importance of dumping it all out, like just whatever is there as you hear it. So it's going to be a mishmash of all the different parts. Because then you could actually read it back and you could identify the emotions that are there, right? Which to me, the emotions are the inner child. It's the energy that needs to be moved through. So I always tell people, identify that, like where you're saying I'm scared, or I feel anxious, or sometimes it's a limiting belief. Like I feel like he's going to leave me. So then there's a belief there that, you know, you'll be abandoned. So identifying that, and then picturing that inner child as if it's your child walking into the room, walking into your bedroom and saying this to you, saying, Mommy, I'm scared. Or nobody likes me. Or people always leave me. And what would you give that child? What would that child need? Most likely it's not what you got from your parents, but to learn to start to reparent that child. Child will probably want to be held. So imagine yourself picking that child up. It's okay, you're safe, I'm here. It's okay, you're feeling sad. Yeah, feel it. So giving permission to Feel the emotions that are there. And then what does that child need to hear? And what happens a lot of times to ourselves is when we don't do this is our inner critic takes over and feeds and fuels the story. I have clients that always say to me, oh, Anat, I cry all the time. I'm like, yeah, there's a difference between crying, releasing, and crying and indulging. Or I get angry. I know how to feel anger. There's a difference between fueling the fire and letting the fire die out, right? Meaning, the key to that is really the mind and the context that you give. You can feel something with more story. So here's an example. Child walks into a room and says, at school today, Susie didn't want to play with me. I'm really sad. And if your response was, well, that's because you're a loser. Nobody likes you. And tough it out. You know, too bad. How is that child going to feel? More hurt, more upset. And this is what we do to ourselves, is we have something and we take that molehill and we build it into a mountain, right? We just keep fueling it with more judgments, more made up stories. And so that's why I think it's important to have that analogy, to picture that it's another child. How would it feel? Or, you know, or your, you know, if you have your inner critic, then what would your best friend say to you? What does your inner best friend say? And to really start to occupy the monkey mind with that, right? Like the story work that you guys all learn in Enlifted. And that's why I say mindset work is important too. But as a partner with the body, with feeling through it. Because what I used to do and what some people do is that they override it with the mind and say, oh, like for example, personally for me, when I uncovered that the relationship that I thought I had with my daddy was really just an illusion that I made up. And he worked 16 hours a day running a hotel. I didn't really spend much time with him. So I initially, because all the training I had was mindset work, said to myself, oh, but it's okay. Because you know that like dad loves you and he was just doing what he needed to do for the family to provide. And you could still have a great relationship with him. So I thought at 33, that's what I needed to do. Call my dad up and start focusing on our relationship. And can you see how I trimmed the weed there? How I didn't feel the sadness and the grief and the heartbreak that she had around not having the love of her life give her the attention she needed, the love that she needed. So can't override it with just a better story. We have to also accept, you know, that's stage 2 of healing. That's stage 2 of transformation is acceptance. And this is the part that I find people struggle with the most, unaware that this is such a key part, is accepting that, yes, that happened to you, or accepting that that is what you're feeling. Everyone is quick to want to reject it, fix it. When's it going to go away? Well, it hasn't gone away yet. It was like, yeah, because you're not accepting it. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing to change. There is nothing to go away. There's just to love this part so much and feel the experience of this part. And so it's either that for people, or sometimes acceptance for people, or lack of acceptance is, well, accepting this means I have to forgive my father. And he's a sucking asshole. Whatever you've been, whatever your identity has created for you to survive, to like lock that up over there and never look there and just say that that's what it is. And accepting it means you have to open up Pandora's box. And that what you've been telling yourself all these years might be wrong. And that's a whole shock to the identity. And so it's a stage that a lot of times people do need hand holding in, or they need someone else to go first and see that you can open up Pandora's box and survive.
That was one of the things that honestly was most powerful for me while I was going through training camp for the soul, was the watching other people go first, because I was very unlikely to have opened without that. So I would have been willing to open a little, but seeing others and being able to experience them opening up and being vulnerable and seeing that and knowing they're still safe, and I'm still able to love them and see everybody else here expressing and even able to hand out more love now, really created the experience that I personally needed in order to be able to make that change. And I'm so glad that I started there too.
Yeah, and that's the power of group. Every now and then people reach out to me and they're like, well, can I work with you one-on-one? Or, I really want to work through like one-on-one work with someone. And I'm just like, I don't. And believe me, I could charge a lot of money and take, because there's some wealthy people that have reached out to me that want that. And I'm just like, but I know that we could go deeper and faster in group than one-on-one, because of what you're speaking of. One is if there's something that you're just not ready to face, and then you see someone else face something like that or even grander, and it gives you that permission. And another is sometimes other people bring stuff up that you didn't even know was a trigger for you, and it accelerates bringing things to your awareness that needed healing. And so that's really the power of healing together in community, in groups.
And as someone that has yet to go through training camp for the soul, how is it different from like traditional therapy?
Yeah, so just traditional therapy, when we say that, there's a spectrum there too. So which traditional therapy are you referring to? Talk therapy? Because if you're referring to talk therapy, how it's different is that talk therapy is just that. Keep talking, and I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to keep talking. And what's happening there is that you're just all in your head. There isn't the actual, how did that feel? And maybe they do ask those questions, but it's still being answered from the mind. Oh, it felt like she's this, she's that, and it's still storytelling. And storytelling is a way a lot of times that we protect ourselves, call it a protector, from feeling what's actually in our heart, from feeling these sensations. Now, if you're working with a somatic therapist, someone who's trained in somatic work, then it is possible that they're reaching those levels and telling you, well, where are you feeling it in your body? Describe the sensation, all of that. So I don't have experience personally in doing all different types of therapies to know. But I have many clients that have. Actually, Lance, I remember, I think Lance was the brave one, Kristin's husband, that went first. And within, I think, 3 minutes into it, something really short, he started, Niagara Falls, he started crying. And after his healing seat, he said, wow, I've been seeing a therapist for 2 years now, wanting to cry, and you just got me there in 3 minutes. And so I don't know that it's all just one thing. I think it could be a combination of things. It could be the therapist. There are great therapists out there. I don't want to knock it all off. But how much of their own work have they done? that they can really hold that safe, open space for someone, and that they're not just going off of like what they learned and the next questions to ask and the next questions to ask. Also, I'm bringing so many different modalities here that I feel sometimes in traditional therapy, because of the license, and I know this from having friends that are therapists or that have left it because they were limited by what they can offer in their practice. So I have a variety of expansive tools because people need different things at different times, whether it's breath work to open them up, or tension and trauma release exercises to help the body release the tension and trauma that's there, or NLP, right? Neuro-linguistic programming. We're doing some hypnosis, timeline therapy. There's just so many things that are available. But I think one of the most important things, and one of the important aspects that I bring to it, is being a safe vessel, like clear, like there's nothing there. So my energy, and I've been told this by energy healers, is very high. Not externally, like I'm like, but meaning how much energy can be processed, other people's energy, I can help to move through me. And that's only because I'm always clearing my own stuff. I'm always, there's nothing here when I'm facilitating. And there's a lot of therapists that have not done their own work to that degree. They've studied a lot of work. They know a lot of modalities. And so they may project their own stuff. But I want to veer away from speaking about them and more about training camp. The other thing with training camp is I'm taking you on a very specific journey. I'm having you look at what you learned from mom and dad in the 5 areas of development, which is expressing your needs and wants, which is also giving yourself what you need and want, limits and boundaries with yourself and others, connection, responsibility, and self-esteem. And so I'd say one of the biggest differences, a lot of times we go to therapy, we're going with an issue, and we're going to keep tackling and talking about the same thing, saying, well, how are you doing this week with that? Did you do your homework with that? And how do you feel this time about it? And is it still creating a charge for you? And I'm more interested in, let's go to your garden and let's discover each part of the garden. So instead of being reactive, let's be proactive. Let's bring stuff to the surface. Let's look at, what did you learn from mom, who's also your role model for self, about how to know what you need and want and give yourself what you need? What did mom model to you in those areas? And mom modeled to you by what you saw her do, what you heard from her, whether she said it directly to you or indirectly, and what you felt energetically from her. What was she experiencing internally as she was in the kitchen with you, feeding you? You know, all of that at the young age, up until the age of 7, we are a sponge. We are just imprint, everything. We are learning, we are absorbing all of that, the energy, what we see, what we hear. And so you start to look at what was modeled to you. We start to unpack what your script is that you didn't write, that you inherited, or that you had to create in order to survive an experience that happened. Like something like Kristin said, she got smacked, and I imagine in that moment she decided, to never speak up. Don't speak up, don't rock the boat, don't upset others. You'll get hurt if you do something wrong, right? All those suddenly got written into her script, her life. And so it's an empowering process. This is about you getting your power back. And how you get your power back is you see everywhere that you've become powerless, where you have limited yourself by what you learned is the way to be, because that's what mom and dad modeled, or what you told yourself is the way you need to be so that XYZ doesn't happen to you again. Either way, you lost power and you lost connection to your true self. And so it's a journey every week to uncover the next part of the garden, the next layer of what you learned. We always go through mom first, because mom is the self. And until you feel safe and solid with yourself, you can't step out into the world. Others, which is all father energy. You can't go out and slay the dragon if you don't feel that like you can do it. So that's what I feel is a huge difference between therapy and a specific program that's taking you on a journey to healing.
One of the things too, I remember when after I first had my talk with you, I was telling people like, I want to do this because Lance has great dreams. So I want to step out of my way so I can best support him. And by the end of the time, like what hit me the hardest was I thought I needed to do this to step out of my way for Lance. And what I learned was I needed to step out of my way for me. And once I got out of my own way, so much opened up to me. And it was taking that first step. And I went into it thinking it was for Lance and learned, no, this is for you. You need this. So it was, yeah. Well, question about with training camp, you have the 90-day program. Do you have anything else that's coming up as well, or what? Share with us, our listeners, like what you're up to and what you're doing.
Yeah, as far as like a new offering for people that have never experienced our work, I mean, we always have our Facebook community group, which we are starting to give more content, more energy to. It's called the Freedom Seekers. So if you want to come and experience some of our support modalities, get your questions answered, it's there. But the next first step is our 90-day virtual. You know, when COVID happened, when first lockdown happened, we really had to pivot, and we pivoted quickly and well, I believe, from the model that you participated in, which was, 5.5 days immersive, 11, 12-hour days sessions where I'm moving you through all of it in that amount of time, followed by 3 months of integration, to now the 90-day program is 13 weeks, 13 modules, and each week we're covering a different area of the garden. You have more time to reflect on it, to integrate it as you go along, and to practice at it. And I know that some people at this point are so over being on another Zoom call. I get it. And just are craving that in person. And we did create a new retreat. It was originally designed, it still is, as a graduate retreat. So people go through the 90-day, and then if they want to go deeper and they want to be held in person, they want to do some of the things that we can't do so much virtually, like the physical stuff from Qigong to breath work to the TRE, the tension and trauma release exercises. Then they come to a retreat. So now we have a graduate retreat, which is 4 days long, and you get to do some in-person healing seats there too. And recently, what I said to Chris, who is my co-facilitator and CEO, was, what if it doesn't need to be? What if people could do that as a first step? What if? And then they realize, you know what, it's worth it. I'll do another Zoom call. I'll join the 90-day. And so we're beta testing it, meaning there's a couple of people selectively. I don't think we'd ever just offer this blank to anyone, but it would be like on a interview basis of seeing if someone's like, I've done a lot of work, I'm good, I really just want to come to your retreat first. So we're going to beta test it with our next retreat and, see if we have like 4 or 5 people there that haven't done the 90-day yet. And I imagine what's going to happen for them is they're going to learn the tools. They're going to have powerful releases and experiences. And then they're going to get curious about uncovering their whole script instead of just the specific 3 areas that they're going to get to work on over that week. So I keep staying open and flexible to the changes and the times while keeping the integrity of this work in place as much as possible. So ideally, I recommend people do both and that they do it in the order of the 90-day and then the retreat. But I also want this to be accessible and available for people that want to learn how to heal and end those generational traumas and step back into their fullest potential and power.
So where can our listeners go to find out more about you and your programs and training camp?
Yeah, so if they're looking to find anything about our programs, trainingcampforthesoul.com. If they're looking to connect with me, I'm on Instagram, Anat.Peri. And I do direct message every new follower I get on Instagram because I want to get to know you and why the heck you're following me and how I can therefore support you. So we'll get to have a conversation and go from there. And like I said, if you're looking to just dabble a little bit, then you can join our Facebook community, which is the Freedom Seekers.
And how would you recommend our listeners begin their own pirate journey with taking actions or going against the status quo?
Meet your edge. Look at where in your life you are just skating along, keeping it safe and comfortable when deep down but you're scared to admit it. And look, the heart is, takes courage to take that step. But I invite people to lean against your edges. And because only in those edges is where your container, right? Your safe, what you consider now a safe, comfortable place where it could expand and more becomes possible and available to you there. So challenge yourselves that whatever it is that you want that's outside of your comfort zone, go meet that edge. And if you can't break through that, reach out to me.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. One final question for you, the most important question, Anat. Do you know any pirate jokes?
No, so I have a very interesting memory. I can remember like specific dates and like conversations and obviously plenty of information about my clients. Like Kristin, I remember that experience. I remember Lance's experience. But when it comes to jokes and when it comes to even movies, it's in one ear and I laugh and it's out the other. And my fiance will ask me like, what did you think of that movie last night? And I'm like, what the heck did I watch last night? And when I studied I think it was either my human design or my gene keys, one of those two said it, that like, I only keep what's useful. And I eliminate what I don't need. And to me, entertainment is good for the moment. And then I do not need to store it in there. So I can't tell jokes for the life of me. No, I don't have a pirate joke. I don't even have any joke. That's my joke. There you
Perfect.
go. It made you laugh. There you go.
Well, we always have one in reserve.
Okay, awesome.
Just in case. So, how much does it cost for a pirate to get their ears pierced?
Nothing.
A buccaneer.
Oh my God. Okay, awesome. I'll see if I can remember that one. Yes, for the future. Awesome.
I hear pirate jokes every week, and I there's only one that I remember. That this one isn't it. This is why we keep a list.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, ladies. It's been a pleasure. And hope all the pirates listening and meet their edge. Get on that ship and sail towards the sun.